Hi, this is Jon Henshaw, and I want to welcome everyone to prioritizing issues after an SEO website audit, something that I know well and actually love doing. So um, let's get right into it. And if you are even remotely familiar with our site auditor, one of the things that happens is we have a lot of people who just say, I have no idea where to start. There's so much information that's coming out, and it can feel really overwhelming. And for certain people, it makes the most sense to actually just run a summary report and hand that off to somebody else, say a webmaster or somebody knows how to actually go in and make those changes. However, we're going to be focusing on um, talking about you making those changes and why you would make them and how you would prioritize them. And then after that, I'm going to also offer some tips on how you can manage results that are, say, in the thousands. What do I do when it's, hundreds of broken links or images, that type of thing? And so I'm going to give you some tips on how you can actually be able to manage that without going crazy or pulling your hair out. So uh, the the design of our site auditor was done very intentionally in regards to the order of the items. And so as you see, there's visibility, there's meta, content, links, and so on. And that was done on purpose. It wasn't just thrown up on the wall and randomly. That actually was the priority of how we think you should approach fixing your site for yourself or for your client. And so priority number one is visibility. That's the first thing that you should tackle after you've done a site audit. And the very first thing from there are looking at what is blocked. What on your site is blocked. And the reason why I have review block pages as opposed to fix block pages is because it's okay to actually block some of your pages. For example, it might be good to block on a WordPress install the WP hyphen content folder and all the things inside of there. It might be good to block your tag pages. So there are different sections and different pages that really don't really do you any good for your site, and so some pages should be blocked, and that's good. However, we've run into this even ourselves. We currently host with WP Engine, and when we've set up a new site in the past, their default action, if you don't have a robots.txt file, is to dynamically serve one. And it just so happens that their default is do not crawl. And so that obviously is not the greatest when you want to be seen by Google. And so the way you get around that with them is you actually create a robots.txt file and make sure that you allow crawling. However, in other cases, in different hosting providers, you would obviously want to go in and fix that particular issue to make sure that the right agents are allowed to crawl where you want them to crawl. And then, of course, there are going to be potentially some folders, some pages that you do want to be crawled and they're blocked, and so you just need to go in there and fix them. Fortunately, there's plenty of resources on the internet as far as just go to Google and how to fix or how to edit your robots.txt page, and it's bountiful. The next thing I look at are page errors, and with page errors, again, it's not a huge deal. You really want to look at them individually and see and determine, did the URL change for that? Is this a piece of content that's actually really quite popular that I need? However, in a lot of cases, it really is just going to be it's a page you got rid of. It may have happened after, say, a redesign, and you need to go in and fix those links. And so if you look to the right side, I have a little red arrow, and under the pages column, I hear somebody unmuted. Okay, well, I'm going to keep going. Sounds like somebody is somehow unmuted. Anyways, under the pages column, you'll see that I'm pointing to that 7. And what that is when there is a page that has a 404, right there we will show you all the pages that are linking to that broken page. And when you click on that, it will show you all those, and then what you can do is you can go fix those individually, and in a lot of cases, particularly with a CMS or like WordPress, you can just change a template or change the navigation, and that'll be fixed. Then the next thing I like to do is review the redirects. And with the redirects, it's one of those things where you review it, you don't just try to find all redirects and treat them all as errors. You really just want to look for, are there any opportunities where, oh, you know what, I have pages over here that are linking to a particular page that redirects, and this gives you a really good opportunity to go to those pages and basically change them to the actual destination page of that redirect instead of leaving that redirect in place. So the next thing I do, once you know that you don't have any visibility problems with your site, which again is the #1 priority, the next thing I like to look at is the metadata. And in particular, if I'm missing any of that metadata. And the reason why I start with the missing component is because that can directly affect how search engines see the page and also how they're served. And even if you have a page that already performs well, it shows up on the first page of particular searches, if you are missing the title and or the meta description, then that can really decrease the click-through rate. If people are seeing no title, or it's just, it really doesn't say anything, then they're going to skip your search result and they're going to go on to the next one because it doesn't tell them anything. And so that's why that's incredibly important to address. And so you want to go in and you want to take care of that. And sometimes it's a case of templates. It's a case of a redesign or a broken template, and you can go in and you can fix that, and it'll the title and descriptions will show up again. Then what I like to look at is the duplicate metadata. And for titles and descriptions, I kind of look at it slightly different. With titles, I see it as a missed opportunity. If all your pages basically are saying the same thing, even though, of course, your pages themselves aren't about the same thing, then it can be confusing. It can be confusing to the user. They might search for something, a search result comes up, and it's the content of that page actually is what they're looking for, but the title doesn't relate to it, and so again, they might skip and go to the next result after yours. Now, with duplicate descriptions, this actually can be a signal to search engines like Google as a sign of poor quality, or that you're just mass producing information. And so I know in particular Matt Cutts of Google has said that you really need to make sure that you are doing unique meta descriptions on each page. And so they look at that, but a lot of it is actually related back to the SERPs and back to the user experience, which is making sure that you have a description that fits the content of that particular page. And then the last part is the length of this. And so these kind of go down in severity. In regards to length, the issue here is that if you're doing a title or a meta description that is too long, then it's going to be cut off in most cases. And it might be cutting off the thing you really wanted to say, or the keyword phrase that you really wanted to be seen or wanted to emphasize. And so that's the reason why you want to address things that are too long. And then essentially titles and descriptions that are too short, what can happen is, one, with a title, it may just not say enough to get the person to click on it. However, with the description, if it's too short, then one, it maybe that's not saying enough, but two, it might get the algorithm to actually just make up its own meta description for that page, and so you kind of lose control of that. The third thing I like to look at is the content and any content issues I might have on the site. And the first place I start is low word count. And the problem with low word count is the purpose of your pages and the ability to get it to rank has to do with what you are communicating to that search bot, not just that person. And so if you're only saying a little bit on a particular page, then that may be seen as a low quality page. It may not be able to be interpreted well by search engines because it really doesn't say much. Whereas a search engine is looking for context and usually prefers more content in order to achieve that context, then you could be doing yourself a disservice if it's very, very low amount of words on there that are unique to that page. And so what I would typically do is I would look at that page and I would say, is this something that maybe I just need to block? Something that doesn't even need to be in the index? Is it something that I could rewrite, or is it something I can even just get rid of? And so those are the type of questions you would ask yourself and find the answer to as far as each page goes. And then the next thing I do is I look at duplicate content. And duplicate content really isn't that big of a deal, especially anymore. What search engines will do is they will pick the page that, whether, I don't know, it's probably not just by random, it's something in their algorithm, but they'll pick the page that they determine to be the most relevant out of all the different pages that have the same content. And that's okay, except for if they're picking pages you don't really want them to go on. If you want them to actually be on in a particular folder on a particular page, because that will funnel them somewhere else into the site versus a one-shot page that just happens to have the same content. You want to be able to control that. And so if you can't get rid of the duplicate content, then the best course of action is to apply the rel canonical and for all those pages to be pointing to one authoritative page for that content. Priority number 4 is links, and looking at the links on your site both internally and externally. And the number one thing I look for when I'm looking at links on my site is anything that's broken. And the key here is user experience. A lot of this goes back to user experience. A lot of even the algorithm updates that have been going on with Google over the years is related to user experience. And so you don't want somebody coming in and a quarter of the links they're clicking on, whether it be internally or externally, just take them to a broken page. It's a horrible experience, looks bad on the site, and a lot of people will just bounce out. And so I want to fix those. And another reason is because some of these links may actually, if they're broken, but the page actually exists where I want them to go, it's just I didn't have it in there right, or something went wrong with the template, are potentially high-performing pages, and you could be losing out there. Then I look for any links that are missing either anchor text or alt if they're image links, and the main reason for that is just because, in general, it's best practice. It's not good to just have a blind link in your HTML. This typically happens. I see it all the time. It typically happens after a redesign, or multiple people have been inside of templates and they're screwing around with things, or there's automated code that produces different HTML, and then you end up having these internal and sometimes external links with nothing going on with them. And so you want to go in and address that and clean that up. And then I bring up Nofollow because that is one of the things we check, but it's not. We don't do it as something as like, uh-oh, there's a link with Nofollow, because that's not the case with Nofollow. With Nofollow, it's more along the lines of where are you using it, how are you using it, are you using it properly? And so in this case, I review where my nofollow links are. I want to make sure that when I'm using nofollow, it is for and only for comments, links left in comments from other people, and or their site that they leave, and then also for sites that I really can't vouch for, or I really want to link to it because it's relevant to what I'm writing, but it's a spammy site. I don't want to be connected with it, and so beyond that, you shouldn't be using nofollow to silo your site and be using it internally for those purposes. It's not going to do you any good. So next I look at images, and with images, similar to links, I look for anything that's broken and anything that is missing that alt text. And obviously a broken image is probably going to result in a poor user experience again, and it looks bad on you when something is broken. And sometimes it can be indicative of something even bigger, where a server that is providing those images is no longer working. And so I really want to, you hope that it's only a couple links and somehow they just went missing or for whatever reason, but you really want to look at them, especially if there's a lot of them, because it might be being caused by something bigger. And then alt text is sort of just a rule of thumb. It's a when you have any images, particularly ones that are related to content or could be descriptive, you want to make sure that you add the text that would describe that image. It's not always necessary, though. You will always have, particularly in our tool, you're always going to have images that don't have alt text because they're just for aesthetic reasons. They're only there for the actual design, and so in that case, you can ignore those. And in about a minute, I'm going to get to how you can even, if you just don't even want to see those errors anymore, how you can exclude those. So priority number 6 is semantic. So hopefully you've kind of gotten the idea that you kind of start with the most important, that being visibility, and just kind of work your way down to, okay, well, this is the next most important, this is the next most important. And so with semantic, it truly is at the tail end of all of the other things, because sites can still rank quite well. Sites can do very well in organic results, even if you aren't doing these things. It's just these help. They can help. And so I call them considerations, and that is, we do check to see if you're using headings, or you're using H1s, H2s, that type of thing, because that is the best way to write content and to communicate that to a search bot. And so that is something we check for. Can a site do well without a heading? Yes. But in most cases, it's going to help you because it's going to provide context. The other one has to do with schema.org structured data. And we check to see if you're using any of that on your site, mainly because it can provide users with a better result for you. In other words, it can have a rich snippet. It could potentially even perform better depending on the type of structured data that it is. And so we always encourage people to be using that to some extent on their sites now, because search engines are using it. There is, after semantics in our tool, we have page speed, and I just want to touch base really quickly on page speed, because this is the one that actually is, I would say, the most self-explanatory. And then also, it's something where you can kind of move on and even use other tools to really get down and dirty with all the different pages on your site. And with page speed, again, it is a user experience issue. It's also a signal. It is something that can impact how well your site ranks. I don't think it's a really huge impact, but it is part of it. Nobody wants to go to a site that takes forever to load. They're going to bounce out, and Google doesn't want to return that in their search results. And so what we do is we use YSlow, which is by Yahoo. It was made several years ago, and we will look at your home page and just give you an idea of the health of that. And then you can kind of scroll down, and it will tell you all the things you could do if you do have any problems and how to fix that. There are a couple other places you can go to and one is actually Google Analytics now. Google Analytics has a page speed area. I believe it's connected with Google Webmaster Tools. Another tool that I really like is GT Metrics. GT Metrics. I think it's .net, might be .com, and that will apply both Google PageSpeed and YSlow, and I really like that. That tool's been around for several years, and it's great to run on any page that you have on your site. So I'm gonna kind of end and focus on what do you do when you have a ton of issues that are coming back from the auditing results. And so I'm going to kind of give some tips on how you can approach that and address that so it's a little more manageable. So one of the things that you can do with our site auditor is when you find something that is, say, a broken image or link, we always list the number of pages that it's found on, and you can see it in the column that I've highlighted right up here as one example. And so what I like to do is I like to sort and find the items that have the error on the most pages. And then what I can do is I can click on, in this case, that 17 link, and then that will show me all the pages that it's on. And in a lot of cases, since most sites are run off a CMS and they are template-based, in a lot of cases you'll be able to see, oh, I can just go change this template and it's going to fix all 17 pages, and that's generally what you're hoping for. Worst case scenario is it actually is 17 pages and you have to do them individually. But most cases it'll be a lot more simple like that. And so that's how you can kind of just plow through some of the bigger numbers and bigger issues and just take care of them quickly. So I like doing that. The other thing is filtering. And so you can use the basic filter, you can use the advanced filter that we have built in on all the tables. And so, you know, it could be that you just want to focus on the blog or some type of topic or area of your site. Then the simplest thing you can do is type in /blog in the search. But you can also go a little deeper in case there are multiple values, multiple things where you want to include or exclude, so you can really reduce down to the results and the pages that you want to focus on. And that's where you would click the filter button, which is to the right of the search button, and that will pop down that new filter and give you several options, and you can build it, and you can even save them and reuse them for the same site if you want. And then there are a lot of people who love to just work in Excel, and so we have provided that option too, particularly if you have a whole lot of data. And so an additional option is you can export all of the data, and that includes you can filter down based on what I just discussed and export just that information, or have no filtering applied and export all of it, and then you can bring it into an Excel spreadsheet and work with that. And then some people like to, of course, send the spreadsheet to the other person who is going to work on it, or their webmaster, and so a lot of people will save to CSV and send it to the person who's actually in charge of fixing that. And then the last part, which is actually really useful, and a lot of people aren't aware of it, and that is sometimes there are errors in the report or issues that we bring up that people don't care about. In other words, certain things are intentional or they don't matter to them. So, for example, it may not matter to you that an image doesn't have a title in it. You're definitely focused on having an alt attribute in there, but the title attribute doesn't do anything for you as far as how you do SEO. It's not important. And so one of the things we did was we gave you the ability to exclude any of the items that we report on. And so if you go up on the upper right side to tool options, there'll be a customize link, and it will take you to this page. And then you can go in and you can add as many errors that you want to exclude from our reporting as you want, and that will be gone, and we will not report on that anymore. So it's really nice, both for when you're using the tool, but also when you're creating that report for your client. And then the second part has to do with the path exclusions. And so again, there are areas of a site that you really don't care about. In fact, it may be something that is already blocked by robots. It is not something that you want to be analyzing or auditing, and you just want it to ignore it. And so in this case, that's where you can come in and add as many path exclusions as you want. A pretty popular one is where it has the question mark equals. It's basically a dynamic URL, and we will follow those if we find those internal links. It's common with a WordPress site where people are linking to search results. And so you can actually add a path exclusion that has an asterisk, question mark, and I believe asterisk, and it will exclude any links that it finds, any pages related to that have that question mark in the URL. And so it's pretty powerful. And so once you really get into using this and you want to start refining the results you're getting back, I strongly encourage you to go to the Customize Settings page and add the error exclusions for things you don't care about, and also add those path exclusions. So that concludes the presentation, and I think we're going to move on to Q&A if anybody has any questions.
So the question was from Ken Fisher. What's the best way to handle home/main pages that are light in content because of heavy image use or being a launch point to multiple channels where it doesn't have a whole lot of content?
So where I was starting off was just that, and it's been really interesting because I was the one who actually helped get the site auditor created. It was sort of a dream tool I've been wanting for quite some time, and what's interesting is just how many exceptions there are out there, and how different people are running their sites. And so one of the reasons why I pointed out the report exclusion on image titles is because if we didn't check for that as an issue, we would have hundreds of people going, "Why aren't you checking for this?" and so that's why we do that. And then there are cases where that relate more to this question, which is like, yeah, but this is how my homepage is, and it's okay that it's low content because I'm really trying to funnel them into a category or a section or a page or product. And so ultimately it comes down to you have to review. I said this several times in the presentation. You have to review the results. I guess it can get kind of sticky from some of the correspondence I've had with some of our users, where they're sort of like, "But I use this report for my clients, and they just see this as some sort of problem and error." And in that case, that's, for now at least, there's no way to exclude the homepage. We can exclude other sections if you really don't want to report on that to your client, but the homepage is kind of difficult. And so what I would do personally is I would include, there are optional summaries in our report wizard. So when I actually say run the report on the content section, I would use an optional summary that comes before that information, and I would just explain to my customer and say, you might see that the homepage has a low word count score, and that's because of this. The other approach might be that you just don't report it at all. I mean, the other approach is that, you know what, we're okay on word count, and I'm just going to exclude that in the customized settings section and from what I do report on, because it's just not really relevant.
Another question from Patrick Garmo. Rel canonical needs to be on all pages, right? So if it's stolen content, you can't force them to put on the rel canonical tag?
So with rel canonical, it's best to have it on all of those pages. If it's stolen content, I mean, you're talking about, if it's a smart scraper, they're going to say they're the owner of that. I mean, you just have to trust Googlebot that they're going to remember where they found that content first, and also know that it's truly connected to you. I mean, there's only so much you can do with that. But in regards to canonical on your own site, yeah, I mean it's best to have it on your own site if you can. I will say that uh, we don't fully handle rel canonical yet with very well with our auditor, and that's actually on our to-do list to do very soon. It's been on there for a while. We think we have a really good solution for it, but right now we don't have that part in that section, but that is coming pretty soon.
Another question. I have lots of duplicate descriptions generated automatically by WordPress. For example, the page and category will have the same description. What's the best way to fix that?
Best way to fix that? Well, if it's one of those things where if they're being automatically created on category and tag pages and that type of thing, I wouldn't worry as much about that. I would be more worried about my main content pages, and if your category pages are considered main content pages, and what I mean by that is, let's say that you link to the way you have your WordPress site set up, that the category pages relate to your main navigation, and when you go to each category page, it is unique, meaning in the template you've made, you've actually added a bunch of unique content that goes above the actual posts that get listed. So it's not just a sort of out-of-the-box list of most recent posts for that category. It is truly a content page. In that case, if you were able to do that, then you should be able to, using functions, PHP, or finding somebody who knows how to knows the codex and knows how to code for WordPress, be able to add a custom field, add the ability to customize that. So, but if you're talking about a category and tag page that is the opposite of that, meaning it's not really a big content page, it's just a list of the most recent things related to it, I wouldn't worry about it as much. And if anything, you may even want to consider, unless they're just high-performing pages from organic traffic, you may want to consider blocking those or excluding them in our report. I generally don't worry too much about them unless they are content pages or they're high performing. And then in that case, I would do whatever it would take to try to give those a better unique description.
Sean Clark brings up a good point that the Yoast SEO plugin, if you're really concerned with category meta descriptions, that handles that. So you can always do that. I'll just answer a couple more questions here. There are two here that are dealing with title tags. One is, are title tags necessary from a SEO standpoint? And two, if your title tag is 125 characters long, do you get penalized for that?
Are they necessary? I say yes, but maybe I'm too old school or something. But to me, it's all about marketing. I mean, and an SEO is not about just making sure your site is visible. It's also trying to control the message the best you can. And it is true that Google ultimately, and other search engines ultimately, get to choose what they want to display for the title and meta description, but in most cases, if you want to be fully optimized, you should have a page title for the pages that you want to do well. Same thing with a unique meta description. So my answer, with some caveats, is absolutely yes. You must have a page title. As far as penalties, nothing gets penalized that I'm aware of. There's no penalties. It just gets cut off. Either gets cut off or they use something else, but it's usually just cut off.
Let me see if I can pull one more question and let y'all go back to work. Here's a odd one. Have you ever seen a case where the home page is not listed as a landing page or with any page views at all?
Yeah, I mean that would be when the page is a redirect. So that would make the most sense to me. Um, and I actually don't know how we would report that. No, actually I do. I think I do. I don't think we'll actually crawl a page where the homepage redirects. I think we throw an error. That's exactly what we do. So if you do have a redirect on your main page, you get an error, and we'll tell you, hey, we can't crawl it because of a redirect's in place.
Just to elaborate just a little bit more, Site Auditor will redirect to a page that has the same root domain, but it won't redirect to a separate domain. So if you have a .net redirecting to a .com, it won't do that, but it will redirect to a subdirectory on that.
It does that? Okay.
Yeah.
That was done after the fact, after we initially did it. So I think that's it. Is that it?
I think that's about it.
Okay.
Sure.
I really appreciate everybody coming. Looks like we had a really nice crowd today, and hopefully you got some good things that you can start to use now. And thanks for coming, and look forward to seeing you at our next webinar.